All right. Welcome, everybody, to the NWO show, your source for everything New World. And there's an echo. Happy to join you guys midway through the holiday season here. Getting very close to the new year. And excited to just wrap 2021. In my head earlier today, I thought it was like 2018. So, I'm clearly a few years behind, but
keep catching myself, like, when I'm typing dates, typing 2012 rather than 2021. I'm like,
right?
Wait,
right?
It's definitely not 2012. Oh shit, it's 2021.
Yeah. So, I want to start with, first and foremost, we have drops enabled. So how the drops work is you watch an hour, and you can claim a drop. You watch another hour, you claim a drop. This tricked me up. I thought that all you had to do was stay logged in for like 7 hours and you could unlock them all. Unfortunately, that's not the case. You got to claim them each hour.
Yeah, if you don't claim them, then basically it doesn't carry on. So you have to claim them, and then the progress on the next one will start to carry over.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. But
so
yeah, that's all the stuff with regards to the Wheel of Time stuff, right? And if you guys don't know about Wheel of Time is a sort of a fantasy, it's a fantasy universe. That's it was obviously initially done as in literary form, and that was obviously translated that into a TV series that's now. If you have Prime, you can go watch it in Amazon Prime Video, if that's your kind of thing. It's a bit tropey for me. I hope it kind of gets a bit better. Like, I find that The Witcher is a lot less tropey, but I know, A's, you've kind of said that it gets less tropey.
It definitely gets less tropey. I think the series wraps in a way that I'm excited for the next season, and I'm very much looking forward to what's to come. It's got me hooked on the series. Some friends have mentioned that it, like every other adaptation of a book series, has taken some pretty solid liberties away from the content from the books.
Okay.
That said, I think it's pretty well done. The acting is overall pretty good. The scenes and CGI are absolutely wonderful. And the world that they're kind of building also makes a lot of sense and kind of hits the genre with some meaningful differences compared to prior similar works. Like, their take on magic is actually very different, and I actually like the way that they've done that.
Interesting. Okay. Well, also the costume design is not too bad either, and that is making its way into New World.
Absolutely. If I had to guess, and obviously I have not confirmed this with anybody, if I had to guess, I would assume that we're going to start seeing crossovers like this in any game that Amazon develops, because it just makes sense. It's free stuff. It's relatively, like, from a artwork standpoint, it's relatively simple because you have the source material to go off of. And in terms of developing, four cloaks and 2 weapons, and a crest for companies, that's not an overly heavy lift. I'm sure there's an artist out there who's feeling unappreciated, but it's well done. There are some complaints about some of the like all of the armors in game, there is some animation clipping and stuff like that where things poke through. But yeah, I think this was a pretty solid crossover. I think it's a great opportunity for free stuff. At least they're bare minimum, it's cosmetics that you get for free by just sitting and chatting in Twitch, which
you never know. Like it may end up being, if you're that kind of person to sort of do complete makeovers of your character in terms of looks and stuff like that. Like it may provide the central kind of piece to a completely new outfit for you guys. So.
And this is also, I believe that this has ended now, but the giveaways in game, I believe, have concluded. They gave away a whole bunch of free stuff by just logging in every couple of days. That was, yet another cool thing. I actually really hope that for the next Witcher series, and I have sincere hope, because Amazon also owns and is in development of the new Lord of the Rings series. Both of those fit perfectly in terms of cosmetics. So maybe we'll see some crossover promotion between the two there. And yeah,
maybe.
that would be pretty cool to see. I'm always a fan of free stuff, and especially if it looks good. And I know I've been I'm actually wearing the Egwin's cloak, because it actually looks pretty good in game. So
what's that? Oh yeah, the sort of the brownish one. Okay.
Yeah, the brown one there.
Yeah, I think I tried making the that kind of red kind of cloak work, but I think I still need a few additional things to sort of make it work.
Yeah, for lore reasons, I'm not a particular fan of the red one. But that's just after watching the series. It is a really cool outfit. It just doesn't match my personality. So aside from
they're
this,
kind of like looking at that coat, kind of going, I don't know, that's got some bad undertones. That coat.
Yeah, that's got some undertones to it. Yeah. So aside from this, we're also going through the Winter Convergence Festival, which makes sure to be hitting the trees and the bags at each one of the winter villages for free tokens, so that you can get even more cosmetics, even more items for your house, weapons, and all that, as well as the event also drops a type of gypsum, so you can make sure to collect that and get some progression that way. So yeah, I know the new gypsum system, a lot of people were kind of up in the air about how it was going to work, and is it going to be a positive or a negative. I actually find it to be pretty good.
Yeah,
I log in, do the things I want to do, and I don't really have to worry about the cooldown on it too much. Then I log out after I do the things I want to do, and that's that.
I kind of feel like, to some degree, I haven't been hearing, much pushback from the community regarding the new system. The only thing I think, the only thing I hear about, like, to any kind of, sizable degree is, like, the people who don't generally tend to play during the week, but, use their free time at the weekend to play, don't get the level of progression that they wish they could on the weekend, because of the cooldowns, the 24-hour, or not 24 hours, or like the 22 or 21-hour cooldowns on building orbs via the kilns. That's the only kind of thing that I think may be subject to maybe a bit of a revision, right? If you can have essentially build, I don't know, say 5 or 6 and have a cooldown,
See, I personally think that
I don't know.
a potential fix to this could be allowing people to generate more gypsum than they can use in a certain day.
Yeah,
So
you can.
if let's say you're doing Outpost Rush and that's your way of generating it, the more Outpost Rush you should just generate it by doing the event. So every time you play Outpost Rush, you should just get one, even though you've capped out on the amount you can use for that day. So if you have time to log in throughout the week, hey, I'll log in, quick grab this, log out, as kind of like a cheap middle ground.
Yeah.
Still getting you to do content, but not forcing you to come in to do dailies.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, you can kind of do that with the holiday gypsum, I believe, like at this point in time. If they move that to be the sort of similar for all the types of gypsum, that should be really cool. Especially if they move the timer to be, you can make up to say 7 orbs, like, and then you have a cooldown of like say a week.
Yeah.
That would be fairly good. Or maybe 6 days, something like that.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because then it kind of
just
then
something to
throw
casual players a bone would be pretty nice on that front.
Because that way it's not gonna promote like people like playing like crazy, because they still have that cooldown. It's just that cooldown only occurs after they've created a certain number of orbs of certain types, and then that cooldown kicks in, and it's a big cooldown. The idea of that cooldown is there for weekend players to be able to not have to worry about creating orbs during the week, but they can go about their professional lives during the week, and then have the weekend where they can just carry on with their progression. And it doesn't hit those it doesn't create that opportunity for hardcore players to just run, grab the ball and just run, right?
Like basically shift it from a generate per day to a generate per week. So I think that would be a really good way to do that. I actually really like that. I want to hit another spicy topic here, actually. On in terms of things that have been divisive, and also things that are on cooldown. Let's talk about orbs. Paying people to go be in a dungeon with them. This has hit the Reddit a number of times, and is one of the top posts at the moment. Are you willing to pay the person who made the orb 2,000 gold so that you could potentially walk out of that dungeon with 12 to 15? Okay. So
you have to run that by me again.
Are you willing to pay another player who actually took the time to go make the orb, in-game gold, so that you can join them on the expedition, and in the process they you still make money out of running it as well, because obviously you're killing stuff and there's sizable rewards in the end-game dungeons. Do you think that is a good system? And do you think it should be allowed?
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think of the pros and cons there?
So the first one, Chad has already correctly identified. People have been scammed with the orb paying system heavily already. Like there is a solid trust factor when it comes to like open-ended groups. Because oh yeah, we'll use my orb, but there's 4 of you who can vote me out and then replace me with your friend.
Mm.
So in essence, there's part of this speaks to you're paying the person for the orb, basically. So even if you do screw them over, they've at least got 8k in gold that they can rebuild the orb with. Which, one, those orbs are not cheap. Two, getting to level 200 stone cutting is a royal pain, having gotten there myself. But this is like, it's kind of like a pseudo, I don't want to say collateral, but like almost like a collateral system where it ensures the orb maker comes out with something for that orb. But obviously everyone, obviously the orb maker is getting shafted if they aren't getting to run the dungeon, because you get multiple guaranteed expertise bumps. So that it's not a great system, but I think it's the natural system of having kind of public groups, and the lack of trust that public groups kind of bring to that aspect of the game.
Yeah, and I like the other thing is that this kind of the way in which AGS are kind of like approaching how dungeons or expeditions, as they call it, kind of work. It's not like it's not like sort of making them free, for example, or like not requiring an orb to jump into. It's going to sort of break any sort of fundamental kind of system of the game or fundamental aspect of the game. Like it's not like you're not severing any kind of PvP/PvE sort of connection in any way, shape, or form. Like to some degree, yes, it's it did make certain things that you can collect up in the world sort of a little bit less valuable. Yeah, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the game is a fantasy game, and it's in that kind of sense, it has a lot of avenues that it can go to make those sorts of things a lot more valuable, in the future.
So now it is also an agreed on cost. So like you don't have to get an orb that way. You could go the other way and go, okay, hey, I'm just gonna grind up my stone crafting. I'm gonna make one my own way, which is definitely something you can do. But for people who don't want to grind to level 200 stone cutting, I've got news for you. And those orbs aren't cheap, nor is the process of getting there.
Yeah.
So, now, I personally think that the only other fix to the current system that would be perfectly fine in my book, but they would have to replace something for the high-end stonecrafters, is completely remove orbs altogether.
Yeah.
If they completely remove them, the only compensation there is that you need to give stonecrafting something at level 200 to do. Because
this is also one of these things.
Otherwise, they'll throw a fit.
It is also one of these things where, like, if you're a crafter, but you don't like running PvE, like PvE dungeons, then like, it's one of those things where, like, yeah, you just shouldn't get into making orbs, because like, in some way, shape, or form, you're gonna have to be there running dungeons, whether you like it or not. Like, you're the one making the orbs that are able to open them. And you have to be a part of it, unless you're trying to do that whole kind of getting paid for it and then getting pushed out. But like, you'd have to be actually wanting to be pushed out, like after you open the dungeon for somebody. So yeah, I find it odd.
Absolutely.
It's like having a weaponsmith make a rapier and then being forced to have to use it in a fight.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other options, and I've been a pretty solid proponent of this across the board, is that I'm a firm believer that anything that you craft should be able to be sold on the market. Because like, you know, if you craft an orb, you know, if your whole thing is I'm going to take the time to you know, get the materials necessary to craft this orb, you know, and the natural course of things is you're going to sell it to a 5-man group where you go in with them and then, you know, you drop out and they have another guy join them. You know, at that point you're just doing the same transaction on the marketplace with more steps and less security. You know, so like, why not just make that a thing?
The one way that they could potentially go there is to make the actual construction of the orb not actually, you know, be the thing that takes all the sort of you know, all the skills involved, right? But like making the constituent parts are the ones that make, are the things that make, you know, requires the 200, you know, level 200 skills and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas when you actually have the components, you can just basically give those components to somebody else and they can just make it. So it can still be
or they could buy them off the market. And
yeah,
you know, I think across the board, I just think you should be able to sell all of the materials and the orb, and, you know, like anything that's currently on cooldown, sure, keep it on cooldown, but at the same time turn around and go, hey, I want you know, I want to be able to put it on the market. You know,
yeah,
like my 10 runestone should be allowed to be thrown on the market. It's mine. You know, why shouldn't I be able to sell it? What is special about it now?
I do find the whole bind and pickup kind of to be a little bit ridiculous. Like I get the reasonings behind it to some degree, but it just seems seems overly oppressive. So it's kind of like
the bind on pickup is this. In all honesty, it's a shoehorned system that is addressing a problem that early alphas didn't have, because, and this is going to the combination of anger people and make people confused. In the early alphas, and I can talk about this before anybody starts throwing around any kind of NDA talk, I can talk about this because it was released in a video with the press. It was April 14th, 2019. Yes, I know the exact date because I'm that big of a nerd. But in that video, it showcases Alpha 1. In Alpha 1, there was a gear durability system, which you still see in the game, where you still have to repair gear. However, how it worked was that if you let a piece of equipment get to 0% durability, it broke and was permanently gone. But you could repair equipment multiple times, and each time you repaired it, so, you know, let's say you had a 1,000 durability on an item. Each time you repaired it, it only repaired it minus 25%. So, you know, take 25% of the durability off each time you repaired it, but there was also a skill for repairing. So you could, you know, repair something over and over and over and over again with less than that 25% drop.
There's a myriad of aggravating stories that I have about that I can't actually share in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But, I still like that system more than what we have at the moment with the with the repair parts kind of thing, because from a ecosystems sort of standpoint, you know, you have inputs, you have outputs in an economy and in an ecosystem, and I genuinely feel that New World has far too many inputs and far too few outputs, and that would constitute a really significant and very, you know, sorely needed output.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I totally get, you know, there'll be people out there that will be like, but my, you know, best in slot 600 gear score gear, you know, I'm not going to fucking, you know, I don't want to go and just use that and have it break and then not be able to replace it. What I'm saying is, like, I don't want a system where that gear is is eternal, but I don't want a system where, you know, that kind of gear breaks in like a week or in like 5 days of use. You know, stronger gear, more powerful gear should have, you know, more durability, but it should cost more to repair. You know, it should cost more or require more effort to repair. But eventually, it should expire at some point. But at that particular point in time, you should have had the time and had the opportunity to be able to get a second or a third kind of set of that gear.
You know, and the nice thing there is that it creates an output so that, you know, high-end gear is being slowly, you know, there's a need for continual high-end gear, even for the people who are grinding all the time, but it makes it a meaningful choice of what you're going to wear. You know, I think that if they were ever to bring a system like that back, then they would also need to implement, and they should do this anyways, they should implement some kind of gear set system where, like, in your house you can set up dummies that have, you know, or mannequins that have your different outfits that you can hot swap into.
Yeah, I saw some of the mock-ups that people made of those sorts of systems, or at least mock-ups of like screenshots of what that kind of system might look like. And yeah, I really hope that comes in, because that's a really novel and interesting way of being able to have that system, rather than it just being like, you know, some like tab on an inventory.
Yes, because like here's the thing with this: it enables you to say, I shouldn't, as you know, like a perfect example of this. If you're watching Lord of the Rings, they're not wearing their Sunday best the entire time. Okay, maybe the hobbits are, but, you know, like even they change armor throughout the thing. You know, you wear the appropriate equipment for the thing that you're doing, not I'm gonna wear my best shit all the time, you know, and it be the best thing for everything. And it's like, it shouldn't be the best thing for everything. You should be switching and you know, switching out specific gear sets for specific things. You know, like, I think that would really help with that. Now, I think most people would be rather upset with, you know, well, now my gear can die permanently. Like, you know, what the hell? Like, yeah, you know, that's rough, but like, you should have enough lifespan on it to replace it.
Yeah, for the good of the world, the good of the economy, and for the good of, like, you know, crafters everywhere. Like, that should be the case. That should be how it should be.
Now, I also think that if you roll a legendary, you should also roll the schematic for that legendary.
Oh yeah, no, that's
so that you could potentially replace it, and that it shouldn't be an insubstantial cost to replace it, because of course legendary gear is difficult to make as is. But you know, that way, you know, it's slightly less painful.
That also gives a bit of an incentive for people who don't do crafting to maybe sort of look into crafting as well, because that kind of, I mean, if it's bind on pickup kind of, if it's a bind on pickup kind of drop for that kind of schematic, then yeah, it would kind of promote people to maybe, you know, venture into the crafting kind of side of things. I don't know. I almost feel like there should be a system whereby, you know, somebody can craft something for you without it having to go through like a trade of some form. If you know what I mean?
Yes. I mean, right now, almost all legendary gear is pretty much bind on pickup, anyways, isn't it? Even some of the craftable stuff is bind on pickup, which
yeah,
we can go back to my prior comments about everything that you craft should be sellable.
Exactly. Well, like, say, so this is just an idea, right? And I'd hate for someone to think that, like, I'm trying to be a miniature game dev, but like, it's just a thought, like, in this sort of sense. But, you know, imagine if you could contract somebody to commission, like you could commission somebody to make something. Like you may have the schematic for it, but like you can commission commission somebody to make it for it, and maybe even have it as like an open commission so people can find it, like in some kind of contract.
I could see that.
It could even be something that might be on the town board, for example. Like, you could have like community town project boards, and then there's like private commission board.
I could see that.
That'd be pretty cool. Then crafters can come along and basically accept a commission, and then they get the they don't get the schematic, but the schematic is like immediately consumed into their sort of into their character, so it shows up when they go to whichever workbench to make it, and then whenever they do make it, the results of that crafting like immediately disappear and gets inboxed into the person who commissioned it.
I could see that. I actually I've thought a decent amount about the town boards, and when there's no projects listed, so like let's say a town has reached level 5, or they've reached kind of their break-even point, where it's just not economically profitable to upgrade any further than they are. What they should do is run like town like economy missions where like Greenwood is going for X amount of gold. Well, okay, just make it a mission and give them a little bit of XP for going out and farming to fulfill market orders. Like I think that could be an interesting way. So I don't think that they're ever going to bring full loot back into the game in any way. In the past, it was used as a punishment for people who pulled criminal during like Alpha 1, that you could potentially lose all the gear on you. But full loot systems have not proven to be a particularly particularly valuable or sustainable system. Like Rust has been able to pull it off for a while, but that's mostly because the game is persistently wiping. It's much different when you have to grind for hundreds of hours towards one item, and then to lose all of that just wouldn't work. So like a perfect example of this when it comes to like full loot PvP, full loot PvP just isn't the savior that people think it is. Last Oasis is the perfect example of this, where like everybody heralded it as hey, this is going to be a great game. It's full loot PvP. It's gonna show everybody that full loot PvP is the way to go. And unfortunately, I think they're in single digit players right now.
Oof.
Like it's just not a marketplace that works super well for anyone other than the most hardcore of hardcore players. Like I used to play Rust for quite a while, so like I'll be the first one to tell you, yes, there is an aspect of that I enjoy. That said, that is a very niche market, and it's very difficult to break even on the project this size with that as its core. I've answered that question so many times. Like it's like in the 2 years plus that we've been doing this, I've answered that question just an infinite number of times. So
yeah, it's just it's not great for a persistent, a game where persistence is key.
Mm-hmm.
So
now I think that there could be aspects of like like racing for pinks type stuff, where like you should be able to set duels and gamble equipment between people.
That would be interesting. Yeah.
Like that could be an interesting like high-end PvP scene. But there would need to be multiple levels of agreement to have that not be a system to troll people.
Yeah. I think the faction kind of system, like I'm kind of with chat here to some degree. I also don't kind of get the faction system that much. Like unless there's aspects of the or tie-ins to the faction system that's coming later on in the game, which I kind of don't think that there's going to be, because they should have led with that kind of stuff. I've sort of looked into what was said about faction stuff, and it seems almost as if the prevailing logic of why people why there's factions and why people should be joining factions and joining companies in factions and stuff like that is essentially to provide players who don't have friends with the opportunity to have somebody come and defend them if they're being attacked. But that only really happens if both of them are flagged, right? I'm not just talking about like the person who's attacking and the person who's being attacked, being both flagged. Like obviously that's going to be the case, but the person running past, realizing that somebody of their faction is being attacked, like they have to either be flagged themselves to go and help, because if they're not, they have to run all the way back to either a town or a fast travel point to be able to flag up. And more often than not, pretty much 99% of the time, the amount of time that it takes for somebody to go and do that and then come back, like the person who they're trying to defend is dead.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the facts. So the whole idea of factions being there to put you into a group of people who may potentially have your back, it is kind of like it's a complete misnomer. It's completely false.
They may help you, but not always. So like it adds a political component to it, where like when we were running a company, we were almost unanimously liked by everyone across all factions. Like even the guys that went to war against us, after the war, we would chat, like because.
And by chat we mean actually chat, not like talk shit to each other in global.
Yeah, like we'd have a private convo, like, oh hey, you guys did really good with this, like you almost had us with this, and like there's some really cool stuff that they've been able to do, and like a lot of growth that we've seen across the server, and like we were one of the few groups that we didn't care who got into our invasions. We didn't kick just because people were from a different faction or stuff like that. Like it's that kind of stuff that like enabled us to turn around and say, hey, like even as a company that was very small at the end, because we ended up merging into another company. I got a question for people on that topic in a minute, but even though we were a very small company, and towards the end we would only fill maybe a squad or two of our own company in a defensive fight, and the rest would be allies.
We should have been a bit better than that, but I think we kind of I think we took the idea of running a company a little bit too lightly, a little bit too casually to some degree.
But
so that's on us.
I have a question for chat.
Ooh.
And trying to find the button for this.
Are you doing a poll? Are you doing a poll? Are you doing a poll via Twitch or straw poll? Because I do believe that there's a poll. Like there's in like built-in polling now, I think, in Twitch. I don't have the dashboard. You do. I imagine the buttons on the dashboard. But anyway, I was going to get into some of the stuff that devs actually did talk about on on the New World team update, right? Because they had a bit where they were going through like the future of New World, right?
Yes.
Do we want to dive into that after the poll, or you want to put the poll out and then we dive into that sort of that part of the show?
Let's hit the poll and then we'll go into that. So here's my question to you guys. Because somebody has given me a lot of shit over this. Let's say your company decides to merge with another company. You have a sum of gold in the company wallet. Where does that money go? Does it go with the vast majority of the active players and go over and assist the new company? Or does it go to all of the split out across the company to all of the individuals? I'm curious what you guys think on this. And I've launched a poll. It's only going to be up for 2 minutes, but
I'm slightly disappointed that the question isn't "Where's the money, Lebowski?"
Fix Your Game. We're not actually Amazon, so we too would appreciate fixes to the game, but we don't work for Amazon.
It's true. So true. Yeah, there's some stuff still broken, but
Mm-hmm.
we'll get, Amazon game's gonna get there eventually.
Yes, it's also a live show, which catches people off guard.
If I was an employee of Amazon Games, they would have had other priorities, because I'd have made sure that certain things were fixed. But you never know. If Amazon may have prioritized the way I wanted to prioritize, something else may have been broken at launch, and it would have been horrible, and people would have been at that pitchforks and stuff like that. But
yes,
alas, I'm not, and I don't.
So do we play strictly New World? So we play a variety of games, and we're actually in the process of developing more shows about other games, as well as gaming and entertainment related shows. So expect more than New World from us in the future. However, for the last 2+ years, we have been developing New World specific talk show content. So
and developing our community alongside that as well.
Absolutely.
But yeah, like we're gonna be broadening our palette of content to not just talk show based, but also sort of how-tos and sort of tutorial, that kind of stuff, content, probably mostly on YouTube, in actual fact. So
there we go. Majority say the money should go to the merge.
Yeah, okay.
Not a small majority either. 10-4.
You missed the option of all to me, ha 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 ha.
I mean, I could rerun it again, but that's always the funny. Like, it's always the funny thing.
It's understandable.
Yeah, like that's always the funny thing, is that there's always a difference of opinion, and people feel that the money should be theirs, but I've always seen it from the perspective of it's a company. It's not my money, it's the company's money. The company, when a company is merging with another company, they keep all of their assets. Like, you don't sell everything. You don't sell the desks in the office just because you merged. Yeah. You still keep all of those assets, and in New World, the only asset you can really own as a company is money, because there's no guild storage. There's no like, you can own a town, but again, the only thing you're getting out of that again is money. So.
See, what was brought up in chat though is like, some obviously, different people run their companies in different ways, and I mean, I guess I'm glad that I haven't met a company, a governor who runs their company, in the guise of you have to pay to, still be in this company. Like that to me is a little bit like, that's a little bit much. I mean, I've heard of exclusivity, but Jesus.
And that's one of the other things that would at least make the payout to individuals more feasible. Would be something like a company ledger, because like how do you let's say you went down the path of paying out everybody in your company money. How do you pay it out? What's an equitable way of doing that? Do you just pay everybody the same amount regardless of activity? Do you pay everybody, varied amounts? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a difficult thing to do with the amount of tracking tools that you have as a company leader, to figure out a question like that. Gave officers and crafters more than regular players. Well, I'm sure those regular players are probably pissed though. How come I didn't get as much as them? The majority, like at that point, the majority of our money was because we owned a territory, and it was coming in off of taxes.
Yeah.
So like, it wasn't like the initial investment to get a territory was was even a factor at that point. Not that we particularly tracked who was donating how much within the company. They were just kind of dumping it in the company wallet at first until we had a territory.
Yeah, the issue
we still had to go to war for that territory, but that cost money too.
The issue there is you can't really track that. Like, at some points, if you're trying to give that money back to people eventually, like.
And here's the thing: we're also not talking about like a lot of money. Like, in chat, I'm curious what you guys think is a lot of money. Like, what is like a proper sum of money for a company?
I know what Big Bear's kind of idea of what a lot of money is to a company. I think that's more than most. Say
around 1 mil gold is a lot. Millions, we're talking about 100,000 gold.
I wish I had a tenth of a lot of money in that sense, Big Bear.
Like, we're talking about 100,000 gold when we merge. We're not talking about like some massive stacks of gold coin just coming out of nowhere. Like,
I mean,
this is a comically small amount of money. Yeah.
If you owned Everfall and Windswood, like from launch, then yeah, you're gonna be fucking rolling.
Yeah.
But
we owned Cutlass Keys on a server that didn't have that much money coming into Cutlass Keys.
Yeah, it didn't really make that much in that regard.
So like just thinking about it, you try and put this into the perspective of like, even if you paid it out to the individual, you're still ending up with what? 1,000 gold? 1,000 gold a person? Maybe 1,500 if you're lucky.
See, and if you distribute that, like that's not really going to be. That's not a game-changing amount of money for any one particular person. Like maybe for that one person who's still like at like level 23 or whatever, and only plays once every fortnight kind of thing or whatever, right? Doesn't really bring in that much money. But what you can do with that money if it's not distributed, it is something that like you can actually get stuff done with. Like, you have the potential to be able to sort of take over another territory and find some more lucrative ways of bringing in money. Like, I
thought that was a curious thing because it happened to us, and oftentimes people seem entitled to something they feel that they were a part of, which I can't discount because they're not wrong, but at the same time, like, how is that supposed to be equitably distributed versus should it follow the majority of the active players? Like it's an odd system, and I wanted to potentially get in front of whatever somebody might say. because I can tell you that sure as shit, like one of the options could have been, I'm just gonna put it in my wallet and call it a day. It's mine now.
Yeah.
Like, but I'm not that guy.
Thanks.
So, but that's basically where I stand on that. I really enjoyed the discussion on that. But let's shift to our next topic and talk about. I'm gonna play a section of. I'm gonna play a few minute section of the New World team update. Because this is actually
there's a related topic. There's kind of like a related topic inside of that we can go on, but I'll shut up.
Let me make sure that the desktop audio is actually on here.
Vision and the future of New World. So we have some new people at the table. We have Dave Verified.
I want that sweatshirt.
It is, but you can't really hear it that well.
Charles Bradbury.
Can't hear it that well?
So, Scott,
there we go.
I think this is a kind of big question.
If you can turn it up a little
What
bit.
is the vision for New World? What are we going to see in the future?
So at the highest level, the vision is that we wanted to create a world where PvP and PvE players wouldn't just coexist, but they'd complement each other.
Still pretty low,
so far,
isn't it?
you can see things like our territory mechanics supporting that. Although we do have a little work to do there, we still want to figure out a way to give players a way to overthrow tyrants or absent leaders. But I think one of the big things we should touch on is that between PvP and PvE, we plan on supporting both. We don't have a favorite child in this one. We think both are hugely important to the longevity of New World. We still have a lot of story to tell about. There's a lot more things we want to talk about on Eternum, more threats, more villains coming through. We still have to close this chapter on the Isabella story. We have we want more dynamic things happening in the world. We love that the parts of the world feel different every time you come through it. I think that's awesome. We've heard the players loud and clear. They want more variety in AI. They want more variety in questing, more things to do. We're definitely going to lean into that hard. We have these intersecting game systems that live in the sandbox. We want to put more of that into play. We think that's really important. So, and like I said, we want to finish telling this story. There's so much more to uncover in Eternum that we think is important. And when we think about all this in the long term, it's going to be guided by the players. What are they asking for? What do they want? How are they reacting to new things? So a lot of this is like, I can't give you an exact order, but these are that direction we're pushing the game in over time.
Right, and you're saying you wanted to kind of finish a story that's really the story of Isabella and then tell new stories or continue the mystery that is Eternum?
Well, there's a lot of new stories we want to tell, and we're going to hint on some of those today. We're not going to get specific. We're not ready to talk about them, but there's a lot more interesting people on this world than just Isabella.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll dive into that later with some of the other dev members.
Yeah, I just wanted to add,
I'm going to pause for 1 second. So, just because chat's saying this, it has to be done. Scott looks exactly like the guy who plays James Halliday in Ready Player One. Just putting it out there, 100%. And the thing is, this is the second time he's looked like somebody very specific, because there was a call out like a while back, because like Scott has gone through like a complete transformation. Let me see.
Which one are you looking for?
I'm looking for the Steve Buscemi one.
Oh, right, yeah. Okay.
Oh well, he's also had a thing where he went on one of the videos and has like the skater guy look, from Steve Buscemi, like just putting that out there. Had to be said. Had to be done. But let's continue.
Thank you.
I think when I think about New World, some of the things that are special to me about it are how players can change the world. Like, people can actually have an impact on the world and change it. And I think that's something we want to continue to foster and build as we continue to grow the vision of the game. That, and like you mentioned, the dynamic events. I think those are big, and we've got some really cool ones with the corrupted breaches, and players can see those dynamically sprouting up. I wouldn't, I could see us adding more of those, and maybe even some that affect PvP in the future, right? Because I think that the world changing each time you play is pretty cool.
Yeah, and you touched on that earlier, the balance between PvP and PvE. I would imagine that is something we're going to continue to invest in moving forward.
Yeah, I think, like Scott said, we don't have a favorite child here, right, Scott? We like them both. And I think we've got really cool content for both sides. Like on the PvE side, we've got more expeditions coming. We have this great winter event that is happening.
Right. The Winter Convergence event.
Winter Convergence, and more of that is coming. And then on the PvP side, right, I think we've got really cool large-scale PvP moments with war. It's like one of our best moments, big and dynamic.
Yeah.
But I think our combat really shines at the small scale also. So I think we want to start supporting that smaller scale in PvP also.
Awesome. Yeah, I know there's a lot of community members and players that are excited about that small scale PvP stuff.
Yeah, and I talked a bit, or me and both Dave and I talked a bit about the vision forward. Art has its own vision forward, and I'd love it if Charles would share some of that.
Absolutely. I think we've laid this pretty good foundation. There's a lot of variety to the world. There's all these different enemy groups, the lost and the corrupted and stuff. We want to keep building on that. We have a lot of ideas of like new cultures that can come to the world and sort of spread out across our landscape, and they bring their own culture and look and feel with them. And so new outfits, new architecture for players to explore, new enemy families that players are going to have to deal with. And so I think as we grow a tournament, like flesh out what this world is, I think there's a lot of opportunity there to like make the world more interesting.
Do you think those new enemy types and new areas are going to be the places where we're going to see like the brand new stuff, or are we going to continue to refresh, the zones that people have been playing in already?
I think it's going to be a bit of both. We talk a lot about like this dynamic world, things are changing. I think we want to see stuff in the areas that players are familiar with start to shift and change, but also adding new zones and new areas that players can go to and like find new adventures as well.
Brimstone Sands.
Yeah, I think it's just so exciting that we're celebrating these different cultures, and to be able to go over here to this culture because you want to craft something or something unique to them, or go over to this part of the world. It drives this desire to explore the world, and it keeps making it feel different, And to your earlier question, I think it's hugely important that while we are growing the world, this current world is alive. It's changing, and it's going to be different over time.
Right. And we kind of talked about the vision for the future, but in terms of a tangible roadmap, is there anything you can share with us today?
Yeah, we're going to go pretty deep on some of this stuff, so I'll just give you a quick high level. But we just released our first event, and we're in the process of releasing it, which we're really excited about, the Winter Convergence event. We have something coming out in January, Mutators. This is where when you're playing expeditions at the end of the game, they're going to play a little differently, they're going to get a little harder, and they're going to have better rewards the more times you do them. So it's going to create a repeatable loop.
Yeah, we'll deep dive into that later. Yeah.
Really deep dive into that. After that, we want to spend a little time getting rid of some of the bug debt that we've accrued. So we're going to focus on fixing as many bugs. We're going to dive really deep into the balance. We fix balance regularly, weekly and monthly, but we're going to devote February to bugs, balance, and bots, because we've heard players, they're frustrated with some of these things, and we want to fix those. We want to make it better.
And we'll talk more about that later.
And we're going to go deep on that too. We're not going to go deep on this next one, but we have mentioned that we do want to close this chapter in Isabella's story, and we want to close it in a really cool way. And that's something a little further down the line that we can't wait to share with players.
Yeah, and I just want to add, like, this is sort of the roadmap we've laid out, but we're always listening to what players want and adjusting. And I think we saw a little bit of that with the expertise and Gypsum, the end game changes we made. Like, we heard there was some room for improvement, and we're always open to sort of interject things into the roadmap when we hear concerns from people.
Yeah, awesome. So that's
Okay, so that was a pretty dense segment where they're talking about, hey, here's what we're aiming to do over time. Here's some new features we're looking to deploy into the game, new content, new zones, all of these things they're hoping to get out as soon as possible. Also, for anybody who's been watching for more than a few minutes, that's what I was referring to. Just saying. This is a guy that's got a sense of humor.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like he may have even been playing that up. Like, it's almost perfect. Like, I mean, he is missing the skateboard, like, but like
Skateboard and the red hat, and he would have
for
been
him,
perfect.
like having a skateboard on his back, like holding a skateboard on his back, kind of thing in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
So, needless to say, I think that, you know, one, it's a good thing that they've got a sense of humor. You know, that's always a good thing for developers to have.
Yeah.
But I mean, it really showcases a number of things. One, I'm happy that they brought up that they are listening to players. Like, you know, this is something that is not new to McLeod and I, because we've been around for years. We've been watching them develop the game, you know, incorporating player feedback. You know, oftentimes, you know, that process is painful because it's not instant. You know,
and there's things that like we've said needs to be updated, needs to be changed, needs to be iterated on, you know, and hasn't changed since before it went into the public domain kind of thing. So, you know, there's obviously stuff that still needs to be fixed. There's stuff that still needs to be updated and iterated on, you know, to this day that they haven't really properly looked at. But it's one of those things when you make a game, like, especially a game, you know, that has kind of like the scale that New World does. Like, there's lots of systems at play. There's lots of items. There's lots of interplay between all different things. You know, you can't catch them all. You can't iterate on all of them. You have to prioritize all the time. And so it's one of those things that I feel like they will get to them. It's just, you know, their prioritizations change, you know, per week, per month. Sometimes things get lost in that process.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
But you know, I have seen changes. Like, specifically, you know, I've made requests and sort of proposals to them, and seen some of them actually turn into something tangible in game, which is amazing. So, you know, it's all possible. It's just, you know, you have like right place, right time, with the right proposal, you know, with the right attitude. That's the key.
Absolutely. Apparently there's an ad playing.
Yeah, we're 4 minutes into the after the hour. That's why.
Yep. Apologies for the ads, guys. We don't have a ton of control over them. Twitch's new ad manager system is not what it's cracked up to be.
Yeah.
That said, if you want to enjoy an ad-free experience, either check us out on YouTube or hit the subscribe button, and you'll never have to see another ad on our channel ever again.
And if you have Prime, you can always throw your free Prime membership to us, like, because that's basically the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
Absolutely.
honestly, if you guys haven't got Prime, like, it's a good time to get Prime, because there's some good stuff to watch on Prime Video.
Yeah, you can go watch Wheel of Time.
Hey, you can go watch Expanse as well.
True.
Just saying. That's my main draw when it comes to Amazon Prime Video.
Hey, thanks for the sub.
Oh, thank you.
Much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Do we stream on our own channels? No, we don't. Or at least not very often.
I really should. I really should get that, like, up and going. I'm just terrible at, like, you know, gaming purely on my time, which seems to be very sporadic, and like I can almost feel like people shouldn't be forced. People shouldn't be forced that, you know. I shouldn't force that on people. But you never know. Maybe some of you guys out there would enjoy that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
guess
we are going to be a little bit more liberal with our content moving forward.
Yeah.
We've gained a substantial amount of flexibility and an amazing business partner with NWDB.info.
Yes.
You know, so we're incredibly happy to be working with them. You know, and that's actually going to enable us to stream substantially more often, and to more people. So we're really excited about that, and that's gonna assist us in expanding to some new shows, as well as more like breaking news type coverage. Where if patch notes are missed on Tuesday nights, when they come out on Wednesday or Thursday, then we'll be here to actually cover them on the day that they come out.
We can actually do breaking news coverage. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah.
It's almost been a point where like we've had to shy away from actual breaking news content to the point where like, because I don't know if you guys probably don't know this to some degree, but like when you run to certain numbers, if you run like low, it hurts referrals and stuff like that for successive shows. And so it's kind of like if you're not confident in running like up to certain numbers, then it kind of makes you shy with running out of character or sort of out of schedule. Let's put it that way. But now we have the support from NWDB.info. Thank you very, very much, XY. It opens up a lot of possibilities, which is really fantastic for us.
Absolutely. And it really does give us the creative freedom to do more and really kind of take advantage of our opportunity that we've been given here. Obviously it's a rarity to be able to stream to the numbers that we get to stream to. We're of course excited for that. We're infinitely grateful for the support that we receive from the community. And we know that many of you guys are return viewers that have been here many weeks in a row. And thank you. Also want a quick shout out to our Patreons. Thank you guys. Shout out to our subscribers, our followers, everybody just watching, and our Discord server boosters as well. You guys are a surprisingly integral part of our operation, whether you know it or not. We are going to be working on premium content.
Yes.
And making sure that being a subscriber, being a Discord booster, being a Patreon is going to mean something more than just a pat on the back. It's going to actually provide value. And that's what we want. Is we want to return the value to you guys. We want to be a value to you. So we're looking forward to some changes on that front. We're also looking forward to some changes across our Discord and across other nights of the week. As we mentioned, we're in the development processes of a couple of new shows. I know many people would probably say, "Oh, you could just launch a new show at any time and call it a day." There's a lot of technical work that goes into developing the look, feel, and presence of a new show, because it has to have an identity before people see it. It's a surprisingly long process.
Like it can't just be a rambling kind of show.
Yes,
because we already have one of those, and this is that.
Yeah. We have an hour-long pre-show on this one just to make sure that we have our crap in order.
In terms of the shows that we are putting together and that we're sort of like developing as such, are any of those shows going to be on OnlyFans?
No. No. Despite the hackers' attempts to get me to sign up for OnlyFans, it will not be on OnlyFans. For those that don't know, in the pre-show I talked about my email account was used to set up an OnlyFans account that definitely was not me. I just got to verify your email type thing, and it was So anyways, you can hear more about that in the pre-show. Let's see, we have one other topic.
Should we carry on with the topic of like the future of New World?
Yes.
'Cause there were definitely things in there that we can talk about. Like one of the things was that Scott Lane said that they're working on, and they want to put together a decent system to help with those settlements that are basically being governed harshly or governed by somebody who, the majority of the people who live and work out of that particular settlement, that they basically want that governor out, right? They don't have any way of doing it. Can you see a system working in that regard? And if such a system can be implemented, what would you want from that system? Like, how could you see that functioning?
So I personally think that factions should be able to go against themselves in a war. Where if Covenant is upset with other Covenant about how a territory is being managed, you should be able to turn around and declare war on them. Yes, they're technically your faction, but your faction still comes out ahead if you can dethrone a bad actor. So
there's always every faction, every group, regardless of how nice they actually are, there's always the arsehole in that faction, right? Especially if that group is something that doesn't have gated access, that like just anybody can join. Like, you will get like arseholes in that faction or in that group, that organization of some form. And if it's a whole group of like-minded arseholes that have just decided that your organization is the group that they're going to basically call home or basically sit down at, like, it's just it breeds contentment. It breeds just like the desire not to get involved with other people in your faction, and being able to root that out, like being able to deal with it, root and stem, should be fundamental to helping deal with bad actors and deal with the arseholes in the group. I also kind of think that people who have invested in a settlement should have a say in whether that group is vulnerable, or the group that's governing it is vulnerable. And when I say investment, I think the only thing that individuals can invest in when it comes to a settlement, because obviously the investment of upgrades to settlements and stuff like that are by the behest of the governor or the group that owns it, right? So if you're trying to get rid of the group, or you're trying to sort of wrestle some power away from that group, I think the only understandable and reasonable people that should actually get a say are the people who have bought houses at that settlement.
Yeah. One thing I could get behind is actually removing factions altogether. Like,
I don't like factions, to be completely honest.
Have it be a lore-based thing, but not a overall territory type thing.
See, I'm not sure whether sort of allowing individuals an opportunity to be able to sort of to wrestle away sort of the power from a group, well established and organized kind of group. Not a single individual, but I think like if enough individuals are like-minded, then they should have some limited kind of capacity to be able to say we're not happy.
Yes.
The way I kind of say it is maybe essentially, a vote for anybody who has a house at that territory, and then if say votes go past a certain certain bar, they essentially I don't know, the ability to declare war on for other companies to declare war on that settlement should be, or that territory should be, a lot easier, or basically free. I don't know, something like that.
Like, chat's got this right. One of the problems in MMOs is the way PvP players interact negatively towards PvE players. They might be surprised, but PvE players generally make up the majority of the money spending crowd, in a game.
Yeah, and there's
and
so
they're basically the ones that keep the development going.
Yeah, there's this old adage of like voting with your feet, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not tied down. You can vote with your feet and go somewhere else. That works to a point. Like, the thing is, places like Everfall, places like Windswood, like they're situated in areas that have like really good spawns for players who craft, and players who do PvE to some degree. But mainly the crafting, mainly the crafting and gathering of certain materials. And so in that kind of sense, it's like you kind of can't vote with your feet to some degree, because you need areas with that kind of material and that volume of material at times. So yeah, so sometimes voting with your feet is not really a thing that is possible. It just basically makes your entire sort of your life as a player, as a crafter, and stuff like that just that much more awkward and that much harder.
I would like to enter a counter argument against chat. If PvPers spend so much money, then how come Candy Crush made $1.4 billion last year?
This is true.
And not a single MMO made that much money. Just saying, casual players is where the money's at, because you get them with quantity.
Yep.
Sure, there are individual PvP players are more likely to spend money itself. That said, there is a vast majority more casual players who PvE, who make up the vast amount of revenue in comparison by just raw volume.
I mean, you're not wrong there. The sort of like the subject matter is a bit different when you're sort of comparing, say, Candy Crush to New World, sort of. So there's obviously areas where that doesn't really apply, and areas where that does. But like, you can't say that I say you can't say. It's unlikely that you will use the term hardcore gamer when you're referring to somebody who plays Candy Crush.
True. But again, if you're marketing a game and you only market it to the hardcore, you're marketing it to less than 5% of gamers.
Yeah.
So and this actually falls right back on the full loot PvP. It's not like, again, I've played Rust, I've played many of the full loot games, like I think they're great games, but it's not the saving grace that people think it is. The hardcore atmosphere is not for everybody and will only attract a certain crowd of people, and that crowd of people is substantially smaller than the general MMO audience.
Yeah, that's true.
And
that's one of the reasons why you changed the way it did.
Just in raw numbers. If you have a game that 30,000 people play, and they're super hardcore PvPers, the game that has 900,000 people playing is gonna make a lot more money.
Yeah.
Because, you know, that's just how it works.
But don't get us wrong. Like, we completely and totally understand that New World and Candy Crush are totally different genres, played by, you know, for the majority, completely different people.
Mm-hmm. What, you know, my use of Candy Crush in that example is purely stating that a casual audience brings in a lot of money if you can hit casual audiences. So, and I know that that's a nuanced argument. I know it's not an exact, you know, an exact thing, but you know, you look at World of Warcraft, it's targeted at a relatively casual audience. You know, are there elite and, you know, hardcore players? Absolutely. But the core game itself is targeted at a rather casual group. And it has made a lot of money over time. Versus you compare it to something like Last Oasis, for example, because it's been one of the most recent attempts at a full loot PvP game, and it's single digits players right now.
Yeah, I was probably going to use the example of Mortal Online 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mortal Online 2. You know, another good game.
So super hardcore, it's ridiculous.
But also the audience is very small. You know, and I'm not saying here when people make these arguments, people assume that I'm taking the side of the casual player because that's what I like to do. Like, I used to be a competitive first-person shooter player. Like, you know, that was my jam. Like, I played tournaments. You know, I love PvP. You know, but I also understand that there are just as many people who buy Call of Duty to play the storyline as there are people who buy it to play online multiplayer. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but it's true.
Dude, like I came into the whole kind of the whole Call of Duty kind of thing when they had an absolutely busting, you know, story campaign. Like, you know, that stuff was just dynamite. It was, you know, cinematic and everything. Like, it pulled on your heartstrings. It you know, it was action packed. It was, you know, it had you on the edge of your seat. Like, you know, when they came out, I think it was kind of somewhat recently when they were coming out with like Call of Duty sort of stuff, and you know, just we don't have a single player campaign on this. Is like, wait, what?
Yeah.
What are you even doing?
Why? Like, that was like, I normally would wait to buy the game so that I could get it later for less, play the story, and, you know, depending if the meta in the PvP was worthwhile, then I would continue to play the game for the PvP aspect, and, you know, I have a group of people that I still play with on that. But yeah, but again, like whenever you're going to try and fund a studio, you have to hit an audience that's an appropriate size to make up the money you need to pay for not just the development of New World, but also pay for development of other games. You know, which most people assume that this is Amazon's only game, but they actually have several in the works. So, like, there's the rebuild of Lost Ark, which goes far beyond. I played in the closed beta. It goes far beyond just a translation. There's a lot of mechanics that have been rebuilt.
Yeah, they're not just copy pasting like the story and putting it into, like, you know, Google Translate and then like pasting the results of that. Like, there's a lot of obviously dialogue that they need to replace, but obviously beyond that is, you know, reworking of several systems that just wouldn't really fly in the Western world. That's completely okay when it comes to you know, Eastern markets, that kind of thing.
They also hired in the Montreal office, because most people know Amazon as, you know, hey, they've got the San Diego office, which is the New World office, basically. There are other things in development there and other things that are being worked on there, like Lost Ark and unnamed projects. But they also have the Montreal office, which has not announced its project, but they have announced some of the names of the people that they've hired in Montreal, which includes several of the Rainbow Six Siege team. Yeah. So you can pretty much assume that they're working on a first-person shooter. You know, so you know, like there's a bunch of stuff like that where it's like, you know, it's not necessarily just about the one game. There are some companies that haven't quite figured out how to make that work past the one game, and you know, fail to get a second starter, like CCP Games, for example. You know, they've consistently failed to get a second game off the shelf and come out more than break even with it.
They even had Katie Sackhoff like promote it, and they weren't able to get like.
Yeah.
Do you not remember that? Do you remember that?
I remember that. I remember that.
They had they were trying to get their Valkyrie virtual reality kind of cockpit sort of game to really kind of land well, and you know, I did actually try it, and it is a really fun experience. The only issue is, you know, they tied it too heavily to the VR, and when VR didn't quite make it, it sort of died with that. Like, you know, along with that, obviously, you know, VR is kind of niche, and there's a lot of setup cost when it comes to sort of, you know, buying a VR setup to some degree. So
prior CCP
like,
employee. Ooh,
but,
let's see if we can figure out which
you know,
one.
Oh, hey, Maury. But you know, it's one of those things where like they put a lot of effort, and obviously a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of sort of resources into doing it. It didn't quite pan out, but like that's one of those things. Like it is kind of like a gamble to do that kind of thing, but like, you know, you have to do your due diligence on these things as best as you can before you do it. Otherwise, you'll keep coming to the sort of to a result that, you know, your game doesn't quite make it. And CCP has done that several times, and it doesn't inspire confidence. Unfortunately,
they're also doing the same process with their flagship game, EVE Online, and slowly pecking away at its player base.
Not good. Like I mean, I dropped from 3 subs to 1 sub the other week, just because they don't want to listen. They don't want to listen to the you know, to the players. You know, some people will say that it's only because they want to listen to a certain subset of players, and because, you know, the other subset are you know, trying to metagame them or something. It's like not when a group is actually making, you know, very logical, sound reasonings behind things. You know, you should probably listen to them.
Mm-hmm. That World of Darkness MMO is actually coming out from a different company because they sold the IP. It was in the Video Game Awards as a premiere.
You know who I didn't have tagged for a Warhammer 40k kind of person was Henry Cavill.
Yeah, that was a surprise.
I didn't see that one coming. Anyway, we should probably move back on to
back to New World,
and
that thing that the show is
in
about.
The future, and things that are in the future, right? To do with New World, right? So we have new expansions, and there's a new area of the map that's soon to be. Think of how you want to be saying this in your head, right? Like, you know, there's a new area that's soon to be revealed at some point.
Called Brimstone Sands.
There you go.
Yeah, you gotta say it slow. You can't say it fast, otherwise I mess it up like every time. But I'm really looking forward to that. I think that, like, I would assume that it would have come out earlier. than this. However, I would anticipate that it's probably something that's going to come out in the next few months. As I don't think they were anticipating the amount of backlog that that happened with the bugs and fixes that they had to run into as early as they ran into with the launch going the way that it did. But yeah.
Yeah.
Does New
that's
World
got
still
this-
have issues killing GPUs? As far as I know, it does not. So here's the story behind this, because it's a very nuanced situation. There is always runs of cards that have levels of defects in them. I've built a number of computers. I used to work at a computer like mom and pop shop where we built computers for businesses, built computers for custom clients and stuff like that. And there was a number of times that you'll get a card and it just won't work out of the box. There's a number of times that once you power up a card, it will find a creative way to fail on you, like a fan doesn't work or something like that. And those are relatively uncommon, but they do happen. Now, when you put a card under extreme stress, like running a game at 100%, where your GPU is basically pegged at 100% the entire time, which happens in pretty much every AAA game that's been released in the last few years, the issues start to come up when you run that for a long time. So, for instance, players playing the game for 12, 14-hour stints, you're gonna start seeing what happens when you stress poor soldering, when you stress thermal junctions, and when you have components on a card that are not rated for what they're supposed to do, but they were the only thing available at the time for you to continue production. The cards that failed were bound to fail regardless of whatever game was playing. It was just a matter of time.
The other kind of thing is, like, it's all fair and well to sort of, if you solder on the certain components that are rated to to help with to help basically be a failsafe, like a mechanical failsafe, right? But those particular things have to be configured so that those failsafes occur when you want them to occur.
Yes.
And it's on NVIDIA that they were not doing that, and that they were not giving their board partners like EVGA the prerequisite information to make sure that they have these things set up the way that they have they should have been set up. And so, even though the cards were built by the cards were put together by EVGA, they weren't given the specs correctly by NVIDIA because NVIDIA fucked up. And
relying on poor power management, using shunts over resistors, using their actual. You could see this on a lot of the software. We ran multiple shows when we were talking about the GPU problem at launch.
Oh yeah.
And it's a really interesting problem, because effectively what happened was many of the cards had a defect in them. We talked about that part of it, but many of them were built in a way that allowed the card to wildly exceed the parameters that you set on it. So, for instance, if you say, I do not draw more than X amount of power ever for this card. Like, you cannot draw more than 300 watts. Random number here. Cannot draw, like, as a physical requirement. You cannot draw more than this. You have set it in the settings. Do not draw more than this amount of power at the absolute most. It would exceed that power draw by sometimes up to 33%. that's no longer like a managing setting anymore. That's a suggestion.
Yeah,
Like
that's something
you're not controlling
that's
power draw for shit at that point.
So there's multiple systems that have to basically like either fail or not be set up correctly for that to happen. Like from a driver perspective, you have to have the ability for software to be able to call that, right? Secondly, you have to have the fail safes on the card. The physical fail safes on the card have to not be set correctly to basically flip and stop the card from damaging itself. And so when you don't have those things set up correctly, or they fail in some way, shape, or form, or just not there, you get those situations where cards will draw far too much fucking power,
and they'll blow a VRM.
Eventually,
this gets even funnier because on the 3000 series, they've got offset VRMs. So one side has an odd number of VRMs compared to the other. So the side that has less VRMs, which is the power control module for the processing unit, it would blow the side that doesn't. It would blow the first one because although one side is rated for, let's say, 450 watts, the other side is not. So when the card is blowing its expected power draw by 33%, of course something's gonna fucking blow. Like, realistically, this all boils down to the early 3000 series cards had problems. So the gist of it is that seems to have resolved itself. The companies are well aware of the problem, and if it does occur, they're going to cross ship the cards because they know that they fucked up on the early cards.
The thing that twigged me and A's as well, specifically on why this seemed to be somewhat almost expected to happen to some degree, was that EVGA, and all credit to them, right, for this. They had cards ready and waiting to ship straight away to people who had this issue. Now here's I want to play off this in chat quick. All right.
They put some extra thermal throttles in the software. Here's the thing: you could tell the software not to exceed something, and it would just ignore your setting, because it does not have the physical capabilities to actually regulate the power that well. There's a overclocker channel that we got our information from that, like, super in-depth, like, if you want to talk about the specific components on the card and why they failed, why the VRMs were bad, why why certain VRMs failed, all of that, like, they are on the spot with exactly what happened. And it's really kind of a cool process. Yeah, hardcore overclockers, yeah.
Yeah, not just like regular overclockers, like hardcore overclockers, like,
Yeah. These are the guys that not only are overclocking stuff, like, I went into the BIOS and I overclocked by 5%, like, I'm an overclocker.
I flashed my BIOS on my my graphics card. Like, no. We're talking about people who will go down to the component level and be like, okay, I'm going to flash this particular ROM chip on the card.
Yeah.
What is that? The chip that has the BIOS? Nope, it's a different chip, but I want to change its functionality slightly.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm going to change the thermal throttling controller for this certain aspect of things, and I'm going to take the chip off of the card to flash it, put on new software, and then solder it back onto the card. That's not normal. Like, those are the guys we went to for our information. But yeah, so we also had somebody, New World question here. What's coming to the best of your knowledge in the January update? Mutations. They've confirmed mutations for January. This is going to mean expeditions are going to be different. They're not going to be the same every time you run through them. They're going to get progressively harder. They're going to get progressively more challenging. And
I've also
you might need to do other things. You might need to bring alternative equipment than what you might be best geared for.
not only that, but I do recall them saying something along the lines that the drop tables may end up actually changing week by week by week.
Yeah. The cross shipping was they still had you put a value towards the shipment, but it's still relatively rare for them to cross ship, mainly because the RMA process for graphics cards is a challenge. So let's say you have a 3090 that's broken, and you say, I need a new one. This one's broken. It's manufacturer's warranty. Send me a new card. If they're cross shipping it, they have to take your word for it that you actually are sending them a card instead of a box of rocks. And that's why that down payment came into play, because hey, there needs to be some collateral because this is actually an expensive piece of equipment.
Yeah, especially considering the lack of graphics cards and that kind of stuff going on.
Yes. Because otherwise they're sending out a $2,000 graphics card, and potentially taking a $2,000 loss and getting nothing recovered. So it's a like, people get frustrated with these processes for RMAs and that, but it kind of is what it is. And it's unfortunate. But
yeah, and there were definitely fake, I don't know how many fake RMAs were being done, but they were definitely very sort of somewhat fake accounts on Reddit, or fake sort of posts about oh, my card blew up, etc., or and it was funny because trawling through the various different news articles about all of these cards blowing up, and how dare Amazon blow up people's cards and stuff, and you actually sort of go and look at the the evidence, right, that these articles were based on, and it was literally just some random account that was made a day ago, right, just putting up a post saying, oh yeah, my laptop died, blah 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 blah, and I was running New World, and it's it doesn't even say
the guy who posted a video of his laptop that died, but the video's 2 years old.
It's just it was just a it was a litany of just terrible examples of how not to actually how not to base an article on defaming a sizable company. It's not a great idea.
Yeah, it's a convoluted process, and basically the whole RMA process boils down to there are always people who will do the worst thing, and unfortunately businesses are not in business to lose money, so they have to find ways of protecting themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but yeah.
So other than, I don't think there's. I mean, I know we jumped back into the whole, sort of graphics card kind of blowing up sort of thing. But in terms of January's patch, we know that mutators are coming. We know that certain aspects of those mutators are going to be, going to make things very interesting and very, very difficult to determine as to what you're going to be needing and all that kind of stuff when it comes to your expeditions and stuff. But maybe in the further future, do we know much about Brimstone Sands?
So we know a little bit about Brimstone Sands. One of these days I'll get it right the first time.
We're just gonna have to say it like loads,
Yeah.
and then eventually we'll just be like, we'll know it, and we'll be able to just reel it off like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Second nature.
So, Brimstone Sands, we know it's going to have the kind of Romans there. We know that that's going to be kind of one of the major themes. We've seen a lot of pyramid type structures, including an inverted pyramid in some of the images. So that too could be an interesting avenue to go down. We know that they're currently working on new weapons as well. In their recent update, they announced that they're pretty decently through the development of the blunderbuss, which I called a year and a half ago.
It's been a long time coming.
I'm happy for that. Not necessarily prediction, just adequate read of a photo of what a blunderbuss looks like in game. Daggers are in development. There's rumors of a potential polearm that's not the spear. And
see, I'm going through the data mining site right now, and so yeah, there's daggers for sure coming, and that's been confirmed. We don't know when though. That's the thing. We think that it could potentially be January. But I don't think they've actually confirmed it.
They have stated that January is going to have another event. We don't know what that event is going to be, but that should be pretty good. We can pretty much assume that the new faction that they've added in is going to have some new content, new quests to run.
So there's a few things that, in terms of data mining, so one of the things about looking through data mine kind of information and stuff is sometimes things are updated, not specifically because there's been a lot of work going on with them. It's just that's how kind of game development kind of happens. Sometimes things are added to something, even though there's still going to be a long period of time before that is actually implemented. So the reason why I say that is because there is there's things in the data mine sort of information that points to a club, which is it would basically be a one-handed mace of various different forms. There's also talk of a great club, which is a two-handed mace. Those don't seem to have any additional stuff, say for example data sheets, and data sheets generally tend to sort of refer to things like masteries. However, there is a data sheet that has kind of come up that's in reference to a greatsword, and that's obviously the two-handed sword that people are clawing for.
Yes, they did mention that in the video as well, that a two-handed greatsword is in the works.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the data sheet is empty. So they haven't actually worked on any of the masteries for it, but it at least points to the fact that they're getting on with at least putting in the bare bones kind of baseline kind of stuff to start developing the masteries for it. Other things that have some additional kind of stuff that's pointing to some kind of development are pistols. And we know that there's pistols in the game. We've seen them on NPCs, so we know that NPCs have pistols, at least functioning in some way, shape, or form. But there's some work on pistols going on, it seems. There also seems to be, oddly enough, some stuff going on with celestial gauntlets. which is kind of strange because like the group description talks about gauntlets being allowing the wearer to summon magical restorative forces, but we already have that obviously with life staffs. So I wonder whether that's just, you know, a few things happening and, you know, things being shifted about and basically this being updated when it's not actually updated.
I mean, it might be carryover from Alpha 1 still.
Yeah. Because obviously they were a thing in Alpha 1. We can talk about them because they did actually feature in some of the press released videos with Alpha 1. But yeah, it's one of those things where you're never entirely certain whether stuff that has updated is actually been truly updated because they're working on stuff, or whether it's just because, you know, that's how, you know, sorting and sifting and moving things about in, you know, a database when it comes to updating a game kind of sometimes happens.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You know, some of the other things that we can pretty much be assured that are going to happen in the new year. Apologies. The you know, we're gonna get Brimstone Sands. We're gonna get you know, potentially another zone. You know,
there's new armor like skins coming out as well.
Mm-hmm. They're gonna I think really monthly cool... they're coming out with new skins, which seem to be pretty popular. You know, just by looking around, like you can see, like a lot of people are actually buying the skins from the stores, or using the skins from different events or Twitch drops and stuff like that. Like, so there's some pretty good ones out there.
So barring the names of these changing, the armor set that I have my eye on is the Horus armor. It looks fucking cool. The reason why I say subject to a name change is because there are armors and obviously skins and stuff that you know are basically at the moment at least called Classic RPG Bard, Classic RPG Rogue, Classic RPG Wizard. I imagine those are probably going to change name at some point, but you know, if the Horus armor doesn't change name, that's kind of the one that I have my eyes on. Yes.
You know, something that in any cosmetic game, as you know, we know this for multiple reasons, but you know, any cosmetic game out there eventually will need to add additional things to customize. So for instance, in the latest patch, we got customizable camp skins, which in my opinion are a little bit on the expensive side. I bought one. It's cool. You look like a pimp every time you set down a camp. But like, you know, like all these other people are in their like, you know, old-fashioned little tents, and you stroll up and poof, you know, like, I got a couch in there.
It's like you should have a maid or like a, you know, or a butler sort of like coming with that, like,
yeah.
Should I buff your shoes, sir, while you sit? Like,
yeah. So like those were kind of a cool addition, but the eventual reality is that they're gonna need to add in other things and other reasons to use cosmetics, which will likely expand into a mount system. It's an obvious progression for the game. They've talked about it in an interview with Sir Medieval. I'd highly recommend people checking out his video where he got an interview with them and they discussed mounts. But you know, it's something that they want to do carefully, not something that they just want to like shoehorn in. So, you know, this will be something that, you know, it'll be interesting to see when that becomes a thing. But in pretty much any game that has cosmetics, you aim to enhance the number of options for people to buy different things. And I think, you know, cosmetics for horses makes sense.
I'd like you to stop horsing around with the horse puns, but there were also some
I don't know, I could ride away with this one all night, like.
But there were also some data mine kind of like interesting stuff with for horse gear as well, which is equipable saddles, equipable bridles, and food for horses, that kind of stuff. Including also textures for texture for horse gear and stuff. So yeah, it doesn't look like that there's going to be mounts, at least with regards to horses, in the near to mid future potentially.
So that's what I'm looking forward to, at least. Those are pretty much all the things I could think of that are probably going to come in the next year.
So one of the interesting things that they did talk about was, sort of they liked events that helped, that were somewhat dynamic, that made changes to the map or made changes to the experience in some way, shape, or form. There are there's mention in the data mine kind of information of random encounters. That there are data sheets for. So there might be interesting things coming with regards to random encounters. I don't know whether those random encounters are going to be similar to the the massive turkey events, the turkey boss kind of thing, or whether that was basically with regards to that. I don't know whether there's more in the future. I imagine, considering people enjoyed it, people talked about it, people put sort of made content about it, that there's probably going to be that to me that indicates that people liked it and you should probably do more.
Yes, I know one thing that got almost unanimous great reviews was the Gleamite from the winter.
Yes, I think
winter Convergence,
I saw
like the meteors that drop down. Like that's
I've seen one now.
Yeah, like it's really cool. Like it's really cool because it like knocks down all the trees. It's like a whole spectacle. It's not it doesn't just like appear. It falls from the sky and actually causes an impact on the area around. And I think just about everybody thinks that kind of stuff needs to stay. And it would be really cool if that kind of thing stayed and it just dropped star metal, or
I'd love it if
or
that's
something.
I'd love it if that's how they either start implementing dynamic resource nodes, because that would be a cool way of putting dynamic resource nodes out, like above and beyond the static resource nodes that we have. But I think that would be a really fucking cool way of seeding star metal to some degree.
It would add some variety to just running optimized loops. Would give you a reason to be like, oh hey, I just saw that off in the distance. That's going to be worth some money. That kind of stuff. Even have it. Have a drop chance for Cinnabar or Tolvium or the rare legendary stuff.
One of the interesting things that seems to be coming with Brimstone Sands is a new resource node called Sandstone, and obviously that kind of area. You're also going to have cactuses, and apparently cactuses are going to be a mineable resource of some form for some kind of thing. I'm not entirely certain. You'll probably get water out of it in some way, water and flesh or something of that form, I imagine. But the other kind of resources that you're going to get,
I believe that they've hinted at sand being its own kind of tree, basically, like different types of sand and all that, and potentially it being a thing that you could mine and possibly produce things like sandpaper or flux or
I'm not sure what they're going to use the sand as a resource for, but it makes sense that making sandpaper would be something something not outside of the realm of possibilities, right? So we do know that there's resources. There's going to be at least from the data mine kind of information, that there's coarse sand, fine sand, silty sand, and charged sand. So I imagine the charged sand is going to be in some way, some way sort of imbued with magic of some form. So we'll see. We just don't know what they're going to be used, in manufacture of. So
Mm-hmm.
you guys can postulate and speculate all about that if you want.
We talked a little bit about the people charging for slots for Genesis and Lazarus. Realistically, I don't know that they're going to change much there. I'd like them to make some changes, like just be able to sell the orbs on the market. The reality on that is that that's kind of a player generated content right there, where if they want to sell the orb, they don't have to give it to you for free. They can charge you. There's no reason they can't. That said, you also are the other side of that equation, where you don't have to pay them. You don't get to do what they're offering, but you don't have to pay them. You could go and craft your own orb. And before anybody says, yeah, but that means you got to get 200 stone crafting, I know, I've done it. It's painful, but it's possible. And if I can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, maybe.
I mean, all you got to do is slap stone for a long time.
I mean, you're not wrong there. That's true. That is very true.
I don't want to call it the most fun thing in the world, that's for sure. But it is definitely a possibility that you can reach level 200. And yeah, also the amount of money that you make in those dungeons is well above the 2K that you're going to give to the person for the valuable orb that they are creating. And not having to participate in the massive time sink that is leveling your stone cutting.
Yeah.
So
it all depends, like in terms of like how the how players kind of sort of interact with that, right? Like as to whether it becomes too much of an issue that they have to look at what's going on there and iterate. To some degree, I think that it's okay if both sides of the equation is somewhat fairly balanced to some degree, and you can still have that kind of that like, what's the word, that kind of content just sort of spontaneously appear out of nowhere in terms of in the game, like like what basically the kind of thing that all true sandboxes hope to achieve. But if it's too heavily weighted one side or the other side, then there's going to be rampant amounts of abuse, because if it's weighted too heavily in certain ways on one side, then the person who gets duped out of it has like no recourse to go in any way, shape, or form.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it depends entirely on how sandboxy the sandbox is.
Mm-hmm. One thing to note when we have this discussion about orbs is that these orbs are not free. Like there seems to be this perception from many of the people who haven't crafted orbs or haven't crafted like endgame orbs. They're very expensive to make.
It's not like all the orbs that appear like aren't just orbs that people have gotten for doing the sort of the storyline kind of side of things. Like,
mm-hmm.
It's not the case.
Like the chisel component, I'm pretty sure is 1,000 some odd gold, just for the one component. And there's more than that as components for it. So, I know it's kind of a weird, like it's a strange concept, but like you do actually come out ahead even if you're paying 2K for it, for your spot in it. Because there's also a risk factor for the person who crafted the orb, that let's say they bring in 4 random people, those 4 random people work together and vote to kick the person who had the orb to begin with, then they're stuck with nothing, and somebody else is getting a free orb run.
Yeah.
You know,
when I'm talking about, like, if it's sort of a fair set of circumstances on both sides, like the way I sort of see that sort of system is it's a little bit leaning sort of more towards and more sort of in favor of the people who don't have the orb, because essentially you have a situation where if the guy who's running who has the orb, who opens it up, stays even though they vote to kick the guy out the group, then he can he can run the expedition, but chances are he's going to die at some point, right?
mm-hmm.
Which means the scenario sort of favors the group rather than the individual who has the orb.
Mm-hmm.
So,
That said, don't pay the 2K before you're in the dungeon.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can request to, either have it paid up front.
Yeah, there's a lot of trust in that equation. I wish it could be easily solved by just allow people to sell orbs. On the trading post, like, it's just so much better.
I mean, I've talked, and we've talked a fair amount as to what we think about craftable items being bind on pickup.
Yes.
And we are like wholesale against it.
Yes.
I don't think there's any situation actually that we say that no, there should be, this craftable item should be bind on pickup. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's any scenario that we've come across where we've thought that was the preferred choice.
See, I'm of the mindset, and this is coming from my time at EVE Online. 100% everything that you craft should be able to be sold. Absolutely everything. Because you put a lot of time into it, and you might not want to do that stuff, but it might be valuable. And that time shouldn't go wasted just because you didn't want to do it. You should be able to gain value off of that high tier orb or that, etc.
But that's the other thing, and in chat as well, it's kind of like pointing to that is, should every single person who makes orbs, should every single person who makes those orbs, like, should they all be, in it to run those particular sites? Like, it's one of those things where it kind of doesn't make too much sense if you're creating something for people that you have to run that content along with them as well. Like, and in that sense, if crafters are just able to sell those orbs on the market, then they don't have to deal with having to run it with them, with the other people. Mm-hmm. They can just go and do it.
Yeah, they can go do what they like to do and go craft stuff.
Yeah, they don't have to be like, oh crap, now I'm stuck in this site for like 45 minutes or an hour or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, and of course, if you add it to the marketplace, and it's a valuable commodity to make, it means that there's going to be competition to make that item, and it's going to lower the price for that item. So, like, that's another thing that like should be noted about making these kind of things sellable, is that competition lowers prices. Now, there may be a certain element of price fixing with certain people, but, coming from an EVE Online mogul that retired from EVE with 4 trillion ISK, I can tell you, that kind of shit happens. But, sucks to suck. Seed your own crap. Seed your own market.
And he's not the only one who's left the game or retired from the game or still plays the game, with that amount of money. Like, so it's not like, he cornered, it's not like A's cornered a massive market and then just basically went, "Ha ha, you guys all suck. I have all the money,"
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's not like, he wins at the behest of a whole bunch of other people. Like
Every bit of money that I made in EVE Online, people were happy with what they were charged. Mostly because it was the only thing available, they needed it quickly, and they were paying for convenience.
Yeah.
That's it.
So,
I made some serious bank. I've yet to be able to repeat that in New World, but yeah.
Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah. I gotta find the right thing to corner in New World, and that'll be a good thing.
It seems as though, since launch, it should have been basically Windswood and Everfall.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then I would have gotten crap for taking money from the company, which.
Yeah, that's true. Plus, you would have gotten crap from people on the server basically saying, "Stop hogging Windswood and Everfall." So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, in terms of like the next patch, we don't know when the next patch is going to be. We've just been, essentially told that the next patch is going to be sometime in January.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
It should have some good stuff in it. Their monthly patches, I'm sure you guys have seen, have actually been pretty substantial. I think they're aiming for the weekly patch, but the weekly patches are more of a like, let's fix a couple of the bugs. Let's iron out some stuff that we can get done in the short term, and then in the long term, let's see what happens. Let's develop larger content for those monthly releases. I would, if anybody's waiting for a release this week, I would tamp down your expectations for this week, because I'm pretty sure most of HES is taking a solid week off. I mean, their socials have still been pretty active with the events and that, but I would assume that they're doing a pretty, they're taking some time off for the holidays here.
Yeah, that was my thought as well. Like, there doesn't seem to be that much like official kind of stuff coming out, aside from a little bit of Twitter activity, just basically them sort of thanking people and all that kind of jazz. So.
And keeping in mind that some of these bugs are not particularly easy to solve. Like some of them might very well be pretty simple to solve, but there are some of them that are much more deeply nested in the code, that are not as simple. And I mean, you guys have seen their weekly patches that generally fix a pretty solid number of bugs. Sure, there is always more that they could fix, but I think they're showing a good faith effort.
They're getting a good handle of making sure that those fixes are like good quality fixes, and they're not just like breaking new things by fixing something else, sort of thing. So
yes,
that
was actually one of the things in their video that was really nice of them to admit, is that they were trying to do too much too quickly, and it was causing more problems.
Yeah.
So they need to slow down.
We all know that the whole kind of thing of like them fixing a duping bug and then another one in services, that kind of thing, or them fixing one aspect of the game and it breaks another kind of thing. Like if you're doing this too fast and you're not like properly going through your code with a fine-tooth comb, then things like this can happen, and players will jump on it. Like they'll make sure that that you fucked up.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. With that, I want to take a moment and do the standard broadcaster, Twitch, YouTube fun. I want to thank our Patreons. I want to thank our subscribers. I want to thank our Discord boosters. I want to thank everyone else who's just here watching the show on a regular basis. Like, we appreciate you guys. It's been 2 years of building something awesome, and we legit wouldn't be here without you guys. With that, that's basically all we've got for the night. If you guys want to hang out and chat, we are going to be in the public chat in the Discord post show.
Yeah, you guys should come and chat to us.
Yeah, come chat. It'll be a good time. And I'm just double checking because I always get to this point in the show and I forget to check for this. But fortunately, I don't seem to know any of the other. I'm checking to see if we should raid anybody.
Oh, right.
But I don't know most of the people who are on. Apologies, guys.
The hero? I don't know. we're sizing up options. Like, who?
Yeah,
who
well,
we throw
I think we're gonna call it. If you guys want to make sure that you're still getting time towards New World drops, if you're looking for a channel that's on 24/7, I would check out the Streamer House, as that's kind of their specialty, is basically staying live. You do have to claim your drop every hour, so make sure you do that too. With that, we will see you guys in the New World. Have a good one.